So I think what we'll do tonight then, people who have been following me this week on doing your yogas have probably realized that I'm glute focused, butt focused this week. Not just because it makes for fun yoga sequence, but also because we're pretty weak in the glutes and the butt muscles in the West most of the time, because we sit, because we throw ourselves up onto our quads a lot and we load our quads rather than our butt muscles. Butt muscles are harder work. And also, it's funny that if you have weaker butt muscles, you definitely translate force into your low back, definitely translates also force more into the shoulders, because we're not actually translating it into the ground well enough. So we are going to be looking at that. But we're also going to have a half hour of relaxation and everything. Awesome. Oh, it's banging, cracking. I bet Ivan's going to be here in a minute, but his spot's still free, so that's kind of cool. Right. I'm going to mute everybody on here, just like if you always want to unmute yourselves, you can unmute yourselves. And also remind me if I'm all of a sudden like doing something with foot and it doesn't feel good, in case it just flies out the other side of my brain. Hasn't yet, but like it's always a possibility. Just shout at me. Let's get on with some breathing practice. Come on. I think we should start off in any seated position that feels comfortable. I'm going to start off in Baddha Konasana. I kind of like this position for breathing. Kind of opens the hips out, makes space for the belly. If it doesn't feel comfortable, you can sit up on a block, but you can always like sit in a way that feels good. Feel your connection to the sit bones in the ground. Feel for that idea of your weight pressing into the ground. Notice that as you push into the ground, that there's a lift that happens. On your next inhale, lift the front of your rib cage up, a little bit, right the front of the diaphragm. Lift that up a little bit. On the exhale, dropping the shoulders down the back. Starting off with just a little bit, maybe a heart opening just at the beginning. If it feels okay to close the eyes, you can close the eyes. If it doesn't feel okay, close the eyes and lower your gaze. I'm going to practice with this technique that I've been kind of playing with quite a bit this last few weeks of sending breath into the belly. And the idea is this: we're going to break the breath down into 3/4 and 1/4. And the 3/4 we're going to send down into the belly on an inhale. And the last quarter comes into the chest and you feel a little bit of a lift up. And then on the exhale, gently squeezing the belly, activating the core muscles, keeping length in the spine. Relax the belly before you take the next inhale, and repeat. As you're going through these breath cycles, notice what comes up physiologically in the mind. And also if the mind wants to wander, which is okay if it does. And come back to this rhythm of 3/4 of the breath going down into the belly. Last quarter filling the chest up. And then gentle squeeze of the belly on the exhale. Let the arms become heavy. Let your shoulders sink down the back. Your face relax as well, the eyes, the mouth. Imagine the kind of face you'd have if you're on holiday, a holiday that just goes on all the time. Let's get going with some movement. We're going to close off from Spadaconastus, soles, bring the feet together, legs together, into seated side bend. I'm going to show it with a leg, with a one particular leg position, but if this doesn't work for you, you can do something else. One heel to the groin, make that the right leg if you're going to be following along. Left leg goes out. If this doesn't work for you, find something that does. Doesn't this one's not. It just gets the legs all warmed up. Feel for pushing through this leg, especially the heel of the foot. This one, feel for anchoring it into the floor so it doesn't feel like it's just floating off in space. Inhale, lift the arms up. Left arm comes down on the side, right arm comes up and over. Notice what happens when you start pushing through this leg and maybe even gently pressing that heel down into the floor of the straight leg. And maybe pushing the side of the foot that's got the heel to the groin. You might feel your muscles in your hips switching on. That's good. We're starting to warm them up. If you're sitting cross-legged and you can press the sides of your feet down into the floor, that kind of does something similar. Inhale and lift up the elbow on that right arm. Take the shoulder blade up a little bit with it. Let the shoulder blade on the other side drop down. Second arm position, we're going to go into a chest opener. The only thing that moves is this top arm. We're going to bring it into a 45-degree position. Big breath into the hand, extending the arm, extending the fingers away from the wrist away from the elbows away from the shoulder. Exhale, let the shoulder come back ever so slightly. Third arm position, hand comes down into a neck release position. Let it come so it's hovering about 6 inches off the floor. A couple of things you can play with here. You can start off by taking a hand a little bit further back, changes the orientation a little bit more opening in the shoulder area. If you feel like your shoulders are tense on that side, a nice little trick, let the hand come down, let the hand touch something. The shoulder releases a little bit at that point, you can bring it back up. The most important bit of this to come out of it, the hand comes up off the floor, put the hand underneath the head, feel the whole weight of your head. It weighs a lot. Bring it up to the middle. That was loud. Somebody just came to Zoom. Whatever you're doing with your legs, swap them over so you're doing the same thing on the other side. I always forget to say this on the other side because this is my funny shaped leg. I always orientate this with the knee pointing up, not the toes pointing up, because your toes can point up in all sorts of different directions. It's much better to have the knee pointing up towards the ceiling than the toes. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Right hand comes down, left hand comes up and over. Keep your sit bones nice and grounded into the mat underneath you. Feel as you breathe in that there's a little bit of a lift going on. As you breathe out, keep that lift in place. Maybe let that top elbow come up a little bit, taking the shoulder with it. Bottom shoulder blade comes down a little bit. Relaxing the face, the jaw. Maybe letting the tip of the tongue rest gently on the top of the roof of the mouth. Maybe exploring lifting the front of the rib cage up a little bit on your next inhale. Chest opener. This arm comes down 45 degrees. Everything else pretty much stays where it is. Huge breath into the hand. Fingers move away from the wrist. Wrist away from the elbow. Elbow away from the shoulder. And then on the exhale, take it a little bit back. Third arm position, neck release, hand comes down. If it felt nice to take that hand a little bit further back, get a little bit more opening in the shoulder, if it was nice to bring it down to touch something to release, we can play with that. Coming out of this, hand comes up off the floor underneath the head, lifting the head up. Yeah. Give your legs a little bit of a shake. We'll go play around with some abs. Now, we're not going to do anything too what's this name with the abs, too exciting with the abs, because we want that half an hour of relaxation. This is part of it. Let's lie down on the floor, knees up towards the ceiling. I think dipping frog is probably quite a nice one to play with. Before we start doing anything at all with abs, part of the reason people find abs hard is because A, there's a lot of tension in the body, B, there's all of this anticipation that this is going to suck. And that builds up tension in the body, and that uses energy where we don't need to. So let's begin by letting the arms be heavy, the head be heavy, the shoulders be heavy, the hips be heavy. And then for dipping frog, you're going to lift your feet up off the floor so your knees are over your hips. Notice if anywhere else starts to tense up. The face is a good clue here. The face is a good place to start. Your scalp, your jaw, all that kind of stuff. Your neck even. Make little adjustments so that you're minimizing this. Take a breath in. It doesn't have to be a full breath. This is maybe like a 50% breath. Hold the breath in. Press your low back into the mat. Exhale, left heel comes down towards the floor really slowly. Keep going until you feel your low back lifting up off the floor, then you can stop. If you touch the floor, that's kind of cool. If not, doesn't matter. Inhale, come back to that starting position. Again, really slowly. As you're coming back up, notice if any places are tensing up that they don't need to be tensed up. Hold the breath, press your low back down into the floor. Exhale, right heel comes down towards the floor. Notice if your low back wants to lift up. As soon as that starts to happen, stop and then reverse the process. If the heel touches the floor, then inhale, bring the foot back up to that starting position. As you're doing this, notice if anything's tensed up. Hold the breath, press your bottom back, low back into the mat. Exhale, left heel down towards the floor. Maybe this time squeezing the belly just a little bit. Inhale, come back up to that starting position. Again, using this time to notice if anything's tense. Don't bite your jaw, don't clench your eyes. Hold the breath, press your low back down into the mat. Exhale, right heel goes down towards the floor. Inhale, come back slowly to that starting position. Let's do 2 more on each side at our own speed, our own breath patterns. And then when you're done with that, bring your feet to the floor. Take some resting breaths. I promised glute exercises, hip exercises. For this, it's useful to have a block. Come here. There you go. If you don't have a block, rolled up blanket will do the job. If you don't have a rolled up blanket, You could use trainers, pet cat, pet dog if you're at home, whatever kind of like comes in, potted plant, wherever kind of comes in handy. This is going to go between the thighs. We're going to give it a gentle squeeze. A gentle squeeze. Not like a 200% squeeze. Not like we're trying to break it. Like maybe a 20% squeeze. This is going to switch on the hips a little bit. And we're going to get a little bit more out of doing this bridge. We're going to do a moving bridge. And we're going to cue this one a little bit different to how I normally do it. So bring your feet into a position for bridge. Some people like to brush the back of their heels. Other people don't care so much about that. Main thing here, press down through the feet. Start off before you even lift off by grounding your feet, making sure that balls of my feet are on the floor, the outer edges of my feet are on the floor, the heels are on the floor. Then sink your hips down into the floor to make sure that your hips aren't starting to lift up before you kick off. Big breath in, send the breath all the way down into your feet. Lift and spread the toes. Start pushing through the feet. Lift up your hips. Then the low back lifts up. Then the mid back lifts up. And then the upper back lifts up. Keep going as far as feels good. Keep giving that block a little bit of a squeeze. Inhale, coming back down, repeating that process. Upper back comes down first. Mid back comes down next. Low back comes down next. Hips come down last. Let them come down all the way. Keep that even pressure through your feet all throughout. All the way down, hold the breath, ground your feet, block gets a little bit of a squeeze, exhale, hips come up, low back comes up, mid back comes up, upper back comes up. Inhale, going back down, upper back comes down, mid back goes down, low back goes down, hips go down. Notice as you're doing this, there's a little bit of a curvature in the pelvis happening. You're tilting your pelvis a little bit. That's a good thing. Let's do that a couple more times. Ground through your feet, tilt your pelvis, lift the hips up, lift the low back up, mid back up, upper back up. Going back down, opposite way, upper back comes down, mid back goes down, low back goes down, and your hips go down. Do a few more here. Really internalizing this feeling. Not how high you're going, not what it looks like, not what somebody else is doing. Really feel into this movement. Feel for that tilt in the pelvis as you lift up off the mat. And then that activation of the ab muscles as you're coming down to hold you up, as you're bringing you up, especially the upper back up, down onto the floor. Make that the last one. Remove the block, pop it somewhere where you're going to not lose it, because we might need it in a minute. Dragonfly twist. Yeah, I love this twist. We're already pretty much set up for dragonfly twist. Find your right foot, bring your right ankle over your left thigh. That's where we're going to start. Find the sole of your foot on that right foot. What's going to happen is the sole of the foot's going to come down over to the left-hand side, and you're going to bring it down onto the floor. Boom. If you're kind of flexible in the torso, you might be able to get both your shoulder blades down on the mat. If you bring your arms into a T shape or whatever feels good. If not, if that right shoulder wants to lift up, that's okay too. Feel for breathing into this spiral that you've created in your torso, especially in the belly. Notice where the breath gets in easiest. Notice where the breath has to work a little bit harder to get in. Gently press the sole of that right foot into the floor. Notice if that switches on any muscles, if that makes any difference. To come out of this one, unhook that foot over the top, bring it to the middle, pick the other one up. The other side. Before we do the other side, straighten out your spine. Make sure you haven't got any kind of weird twists going on in there. Find your right foot. Cross the right ankle over the left ankle over the right thigh this time. Sole of your left foot comes over to the right-hand side and comes down onto the floor. Boom. Launch it. Go away, walk. Again, notice this spiral that you've created in the other direction. Contents of your torso is not the same on one side and the other. You might be able to notice little subtle differences. Coming out of this, unhook that top foot, bring that foot into the middle, bring the other knee to the middle, give everything a little bit of a wriggle from one side to the other. Roll over onto your favorite side, or if you want to challenge, you're not your favorite side. We'll come into tabletop. We're going to do some cool stuff in tabletop now. Bird dog. Because I know some people love bird dog rather than quadruped. So we're going to play with bird dog today. This is what bird dog looks like. You start off on all fours. Go away, Siri. There we go. Ground your hands into the floor. Make sure your knees are on the floor. Hands under the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Keep your neck relaxed here as well. We don't be like, I know in the beginning stages when I'm explaining this, everybody's looking around like meerkats. When you're actually doing it, let your neck relax. Okay. Bird dog. You're going to find your right hand, find your left knee. This is what happens. The easier version of bird dog is that you extend your left leg out and come onto the toes and extend the right arm out. If you're feeling like I'm up for a challenge today, that challenge is then that left leg can come up. And so you're like a little pointer dog or a big pointer dog. You're pointing with your hand and your leg. Bring both your limbs down onto the floor. Swap over. You've got to swap. You've got to kind of like have alternate ones here. So this time, left hand, right leg. Extend the left arm out. Right leg can be tiptoes on the floor or way out. The way out version is going to be working your glutes a little bit more. Come back to the starting position. Square yourself off. The other side. Right arm straightens out. Left leg goes out. Can you do this without moving your head and your neck? That's a good one. Swap over the other side. If you've got the leg lifted up off the floor, press through the heel of the foot. Feel what you feel. That's switching on in your hips. Swap over. Let's do the other side. And keep doing a few more rounds at your own. Finish off the round you're on. We're going to focus this time just on the legs. So if you were somebody that was just extending your toes out, keeping the tippy toes on the floor, tippy toes on the floor, that works too. Then you can carry on doing that, but don't do the arm parts. It's just going to look like extending the leg out on the tiptoes, bringing the leg in, extending it out. If you were somebody who had the leg out straight and you want a bigger challenge, then here's the nice little challenge. You're going to lift the knee up off the floor, keep the leg bent, and lift that foot up, keeping the knee bent. And then bring it back down. Same, then swapping over on the other side. And then bringing it back down. So options. You can do the tippy toe thing. You can keep on doing the leg straight thing if you felt like that was good enough. I don't want to kind of go any further. Or you can do the bent knee one, which is a little bit of an upgrade. Little thing to watch out for with if you're especially if you're lifting the bent leg up, keeping the knee bent, is that you're not twisting to one side too much. A little bit of a twist in the hips, that's fine. Too much of a twist in the hips, not cool. Keep pressing into the floor with your arms, lifting your chest away from the floor. Keep your neck relaxed, keep your jaw relaxed. Do 2 more on each side. When you've done both, when you've done 2 on each side, then come up to like a kneeling position where you can relax your hips for a little bit. While I show you the next thing that we're going to do. There's a lot of different people. When you say to somebody, how do the hips move? You tend to think, well, your leg moves in this direction. Your hips actually move in all sorts of different directions. There's rotation of the thighs, goes forward, goes back. They also go out to the side and inwards. Inwards, we don't exercise that so much, but the outward motion of the leg, abduction, is actually a really fun one to play with. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go back into tabletop position. And you have 2 options. Number 1, lift one knee up and then take the leg out to the side. And bring it slowly back in. Swap over. Come over to the other side. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, you can take this leg out to the side, do a few with a straight leg on one side, and swap over and do a few on the other side with a straight leg. Pick your adventure. The one with the bent knee is easier. And remember, if you're going to do the one with the straight leg, you do a few on one side and a few on the other, so that, because otherwise swapping around becomes a real pain. With this one, it's moving slowly, that's the key. If we're throwing our legs up, then it becomes a lot easier to just chuck it. If we're moving it slowly, it becomes more controlled. Do 2 more on each side of whatever you're doing. Keep breathing as well, because once the breath stops, this becomes less fun. And then when you're done, we're going to sink down into a child's pose. I like the wide-kneed version, knees as wide as the mat, heels together, and then shoot your hips back, and then bring your chest down towards the floor. Little thing I've been playing with. If you find it hard to bring your chest down onto the floor for whatever reason, a block or a cushion is brilliant, because you can rest your chest against the block. Your body then relaxes because it's not having this sort of like fight to stay in the air, which sucks. And the other thing is that if you stay in for a couple of breaths, you can maybe be able to lower the block, and you come a little bit lower. And you might be able to take the block away or whatever you've got and bring your chest onto the floor. Feel for especially relaxing the hip area here. If you tighten the hips, tighten the butt muscles and the glute muscles, work on gently pulling the hips towards the heels. If you're the sort of person that has the flexibility that your hips touch your heels really easily, then feel for gently squeezing the hips towards the heels so that you're switching on some of those muscles, but only 20%. Slowly come out of your child's pose. Let's come up to a standing. And because we've been working those muscles a little bit, let's lengthen these muscles now, especially the piriformis muscle, which is one of the ones in the butt. Also the big glute max muscle in the butt. So we're going to lengthen this. We're going to use something called Hindi squat, which is actually quite a nice one to play with. And there's all sorts of different variations of squat, so you don't actually have to come into the full incarnation of it to get the fun out of it. If balance is challenging, we've got chairs, we've got blocks, we've got stairs, we've got radiators too. So you can always use something for balance. Start off with your feet about hip distance apart, knees pointing out a little bit. Stage one of a squat is to bend the knees, heels come up, and we come down. Now maybe your hands are going to go along your legs. Maybe you're going to come all the way down. Maybe not. If you're not coming all the way down, that's fine too. Is that painful? What I want you to do then, while everybody's playing with this, is you can play with something called chair against the wall. Bring it low back into the wall and pretend you're on a chair like this. Yeah. Just gently. Bring the knees in a little bit. How's that feeling in the foot? Brilliant. Everybody else, let's finish this Hindi squat off. If this feels like a comfortable position, bring your elbows in on the inside of the knees like this. Like this. Hands come together. We all look super spiritual right now. This is amazing. Clamp your knees into your elbows and push the elbows into the knees. So again, we're working the hip muscles a little bit here. Lift the chest up a little bit. Look forward. Breathe. Look really wise. That helps. And then for the finale in this one, and if you've done this one a few times already this week, I know some of you have, we're going to come up to a standing position from here. Yes, cool. Your legs a little bit of a shake. How did that feel? Cool. This might also be something that you'll need a modification for, but I'll come to you with that one. Stand at the front of the mat. We're going to play with, let's come into a warrior one with back toes curled under. So step the left leg back, come onto the toes of the foot, like this. Bend the front knee. And here's the key. The more you sink this knee down towards the floor, the more this leg here works, the more everything works, the more these butt muscles work, the more everything kind of works. How's that feel? Is that okay? So you can keep the heel. That's better for you. Yeah, keep the foot down on the floor and sink into that one. Yeah. Ooh. So let's change this into a lunge. So for the lunge, we're going to bring the hands down on the floor, bring that back knee down. Keep the back toes curled under, because except for you, everybody else can keep the back toes curled under. Tuck your hips in, lift your arms up. Breathe in a way that feels really releasing. And keep pressing through this front foot. Keep pressing through this knee down here, so you're stabilizing the hips. Options to come back into lunge with back toes curled under. Option number one is that you can use your hands on your thighs and come up. But if you want a little bit of a challenge, you can shoot your way forward, come up off that front leg as slowly as possible. It is easier with a hand on the leg. Like that. It's quite a tough one, that one. That's slippery as well. It's like a toboggan. Maybe the arms come up again. Really working those legs here. From here, we're going to play with, let's play with Warrior 3. I'm going to bring a block in, because you might decide, oh, a block is kind of cool. So what we're going to do from here, shift your weight, pull your weight into that front leg. Notice how the back leg becomes a little bit light here. First stage of Warrior 3 is basically to be playing with lifting this back foot up. Stage 2, lifting that leg up a bit more. Trying to keep your head and your feet in a line. Stage 3, bringing the torso and leg horizontal to the floor. Now, some people like this idea of picking up a block and then coming back up to a standing. So it's like a single leg deadlift, because otherwise their arms tend to kind of like do funny stuff. And you end up standing in the front of the mat. If you've been doing this week with me before, you're probably getting really good at it. Shall we play with that one again? Let's play with it again. So, come back to standing at the front of the mat. Step your left leg back. Come into the lunge with back toes curled under. Pull your way forward into the front leg. Lift the back leg up. Feel this connection between your butt muscle and your leg. Come down, come down, come down. If you've got a block, pick the block up. And then stand up on that one leg, planting it down. Got bad news. Got to do the other side now. Let's start off with lunge with back toes curled under. So, right leg goes back this time on those toes. Maybe the arms come up if that feels good. Again, the lower this knee goes down, the more this is working. Hands come down into a lunge. Knee comes down slowly. Sort of a good trick to learn to bring the knee down slowly. Lock the hips, arms come up. Coming back up. So the two options, hands on this front thigh, makes it a lot easier. Or you can do the hands-free version and come up. And you should feel that butt muscle really switching on. And maybe the arms come up. Warrior 3, pull the weight into the front leg. Bring the torso and the leg to some sort of horizontal parallel to the floor. And then if you've got a block or something, maybe pick it up and then stand up. Let's play with that Warrior 3 one again. So step the right leg back. One more time. Pour the weight into the front leg. Make that back leg light. Back leg comes up, maybe. Maybe goes down. Maybe pick something up. And then twist it. Awesome. And then bring that leg down. Come up, twist it. Yes. Let's have a breather. Let's do Uddiyana and horse stance. You can do this against the wall as well. Uddiyana works quite nicely against the wall if you want to make it a little bit less leg focused. Otherwise, feet about 3 feet apart. Heels of the hand come on the inside, on the top of the thighs, with the fingers pointing towards your feet. Choose the height of your horse. The smaller it is, the harder work it is. So yeah, if you're feeling your legs now, get a big horse. Push your hands into your thighs, so you're lifting the front of the chest up. A little bit of heart opening going on here. The Uddiyana part means belly flying up. First thing we're going to do, relax the belly. Breathe into the belly. Then breathe out fast. Pull the belly up, pull the belly in. Maybe the chin comes down to the chest. Hold on empty. And then if you want, when you want to take a breath in, relax the belly. Take a breath in, and then repeat. Fast exhale out. Pull the belly up, pull the belly in. Press the hands into the thighs, extend the front of the body. When you're ready for a breath, relax the belly. Take a breath in. One more. Fast breath out. Belly comes up, belly goes in. And then stand up, heel toe, your way to standing. Dolphin. Dolphin with the option of one leg up, with the option of not bringing anything up, depending on where you feel like energy levels. Let's stand up dolphin. Get onto all fours. Spend the obligatory kind of like 30 seconds wiping your mat like everybody does in yoga. Then the elbows come down onto the floor. First thing we're going to set up is the elbow distance. If you're too wide, you're outside the Goldilocks zone. If you're too narrow, you're on the Goldilocks zone. How do you know your Goldilocks zone? Grab your upper arms with your hands. That's the right spot. Then clasp your hands together in front of you. Options here, you can have the hands parallel, palms down, or palms up as well. Relax the head, relax the neck. And relax your shoulders, push into the mat. Lift the floor, lift your chest away from the floor. Feel for that little bit of a lift in the middle of your back between your shoulder blades. Keep your neck relaxed. Press through the forearms. You might decide you just want to stay here. If you want to come into full dolphin, tuck the toes under, lift the hips up. If you're like, I'm really liking playing with my butt muscles and my legs today, you can bring one leg up for 3 breaths. Remembering to bring that leg down. And doing 3 on the other side. If you've got the leg up thing going on, remember to bring your knees down to the floor before you bring your leg down before you bring your knees down to the floor. And then when you come down, let's go into child's pose again. Take some breaths. And slowly come up out of that. And we'll begin the wind down by doing little baby cobras with, if you have one, a block between your feet. If you don't have a block, I've got a spare. Or you could put something else like a shoe or something in between. The hardest part of this is getting this block between your thighs, between your ankles when you're lying down on the floor. My suggestion, put it there before you get down. So, baby cobras with something between your ankles. Why this something between your ankles? Well, all you need to do is when you've got that thing between your ankles and you give that little block a little bit of a squeeze, notice what switches on. You can start off this by lying down completely flat on the floor, maybe bringing one cheek down onto the mat if that feels good. One forearm onto the back is a nice way of breathing into the back because you can feel the breath getting into your low back with your arm in that position. Let's play with some baby cobras. Okay. Bring the hands so they're a little bit forward of your shoulders. Take a breath in, but I also want you to squeeze and pull the belly in a little bit. So most of the breath is going into your upper chest. Squeeze and pull the belly in. Clamp onto the block with your ankles and then push into the floor with your hands, lifting your chest up. Don't go too high, maybe just a couple of inches. Exhale, come down. Breath in, pull the belly. Squeeze the block gently. Push into the floor. Chest comes up. Keep the head neutral if that feels good. Exhale, come down slowly. Do another one. Breath in. Squeeze the belly. Pull the belly in. Squeeze the block. Push into the floor. Chest comes up. Exhale, slowly come down. Maybe this time pull your chest forward as you're coming down. Talk you through one more. Breath in. Pull the belly in. Hands press into the floor. Squeeze the block. Push into the floor. Lift the chest up. Exhale, come back down. Bring one cheek down onto the floor, one arm onto your low back, and send some breaths into the back. Feel the low back moving. You might be able to get some movement in there just from the breath. Let's do 3 more. So, squeeze the block. Hands come on just in front of your shoulders. Breath in. Pull the belly in. Push into the mat. Chest comes up. Squeeze the block gently. Exhale. Pull your chest forward with your arms. Come all the way down. Another one. Breath in. Squeeze the block. Pull the belly in. Push into the mat. Lift the chest up. Exhale. Pull the chest forward as you come down. One more. Do this at your own speed, your own breath pattern, the intensity that works for you. And then come down all the way when you're done. Maybe take one hand onto the low back again. Send some breath into that area. Let's do one more final thing before we get into Shavasana. This is called lounge lizard. And it's a nice way of releasing the low back before you because even though we focused on the hips, we have done stuff with the low back. It's nice to just get that little bit to relax before we start to come out of yoga land. So this is what lounge lizard looks like. If you got a line on your mat, this is the time when the lines on your mat become super useful. About the only time the lines on your mat become super useful. I want you to line your... I throw my block away. You might need a block as well, because you can put a block between the ankles for this. Sort of looks kind of nice like this, sort of sometimes sucks. Line up your shoulder, your hips, and your ankles. Squeeze the block together. Oh, that's painful. There we go. Squeeze the block together, and you let this side of your ribs that's closest to the mat sink down towards the floor. So you're getting a little bit of a side bend going on in the ribs, in the spine and the ribs here. If you feel like this position is it's kind of interesting, but I don't feel like it's doing anything, you can come up onto this hand. Same thing, squeeze the block, press the heels away, keep your body in alignment, and breathe. It's okay here for this shoulder to hike up and be by your ear. Actually giving you more stability than if it wasn't. Squeeze the block, push the heels away. To come out of this one, come back down onto the elbow, bring the knees in, swap over to the other side. The hardest bit of these is putting the block between your ankles. That's fine. So again, line yourself up, shoulder, hips, heels, press the heels away. Start off on the elbow. Always start off on the stage 1 version. Because if you feel like here, there's something funny going on in my ribs here, you can decide to not do it or not go any further. If it feels good, you can come up onto the hand again, just like we did earlier. Let that side of your ribs that's closest to the mat gently sink down. And then when you're ready, bend that elbow that you're up on, get rid of the block, roll onto your back. But one last thing before Shavasana. Happy baby or a modification of happy baby. If you're happy with the happy baby version, you can grab hold of the outsides of your feet, bring your knees in towards your armpit, and that feels kind of awesome. Do that. If your feet feel super far away, you could lasso them with a belt. That kind of works nice. Or you can bring your hands on the inside of your thighs, on the backs of your thighs, bring your knees in this way. Or hands on the knees even and bring them in. That works too. Feel free to rock from side to side like babies do. Try not to rock into the baby next to you, but breathing as you do, relaxing the hips. And then come out of happy baby. This is where you get to go into Shavasana. Any version of Shavasana is fine by me. Lying down on the floor, legs up the wall, legs on the chair, side lying, front lying, whatever version feels good. Blankets over the top of you, lavender filled eye bags. It's pre-warmed blanket. God, that's lush. Turn the light down. All of these switches. I think there'll be like two of them. There's anything. Taking this opportunity, whichever position you're in, feeling for getting the hips in the place where they're comfortable, the low back where it's comfortable. If you're somebody whose mind just kind of doesn't like Shavasana, maybe play a little counting game or something. If you do just like to let go, then let go. I'm going to spend a few minutes in silence. Shavasana. Start to deepen your breath. Noticing where you are in space. Seeing how you feel. Slowly kind of making that transition from yoga world into the ordinary world. And then starting to maybe move your fingertips and your toes, your hands and your feet, those arms and those legs, rediscovering them. Maybe rolling over onto your favorite side. If you've got your eyes closed, leave them closed for a minute. Go turn the light on. If you've got your eyes open, you can look away from the light. We're only going to turn one on anyway. And then slowly making your way to a seated position. That feels good. Before we go, one thing. This is one of these yoga secrets. They don't like you telling people. Actually, I don't know if they don't care. I don't care. People want to do, we live in a world where kind of like taking time for ourselves and relaxing is sort of like something that, it's hard to do internally. Rolling out your mat, getting your blanket, getting your props, your cushions and your duvets and a blanket, setting yourself up like a queen or a king, comfortable and just doing Shavasana for 5, 10, 15, 50 minutes is still doing yoga. So my homework this week to all of you is to do that. Make spaces. Somebody's like going, what are you doing? I'm doing yoga. Like, show them the door. Throw a block. And take time for yourselves. Thank you very much for coming here today. See you all again real soon. Take care.